Albanese and Trump, President-elect of the United States, won't have an easy ride as war has already commenced between the pair. Trump threatens to fire Australian ambassador for not supporting him during election campaign. Kevin Rudd's historical critiques of Donald Trump have grabbed the notice of some in the U.S. president-elect's inner circle and generated renewed speculation over whether the incoming administration could pursue vengeance. This week, Dan Scavino, a top assistant to Trump, tweeted Rudd's welcome statement to the president-elect on social media with a gif of an hourglass. That action has revived suggestions that the new president may want another Australian representative in Washington when he takes office in January. A fresh video emerged earlier this week of Rudd in an interview in 2021 characterizing Trump as a village idiot and not a leading intellectual force. Rudd this week, after the U.S. election, erased old social media tweets criticizing Trump. The former Prime Minister is Australia's highest-profile envoy in one of its most crucial diplomatic jobs. His status illustrates the contrast between career diplomats and political appointments and the protocols for sending them abroad and home. Welcome to the channel. Please, if you're new here, like and subscribe so you don't miss new updates and hot gists. While some Australian opponents are demanding for Rudd to be fired, others, like his predecessor and former Liberal Senator Arthur Sinodinos, have warned that kowtowing would be a harmful move. The Albanese government continues to stand by Rudd as the ideal person to serve as Australia's ambassador to Washington, D.C. But could Trump do anything to remove him? Diplomatic appointments are governed by the 1961 Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. When a country nominates a new ambassador, the advance clearance process entails a written request from one government to another that permits the destination country to voice any serious objections it may have. The convention permits the host to reject a nominee, but it's normally a routine approval process. Once accepted and dispatched, the appointee presents credentials formally on arrival, generally in person to the host country's leader. That permission transcends a change of host nation administration. Under Article 9 of the treaty, the host nation's leader can proclaim a country's chief of mission or any other member of its diplomatic staff persona non grata, requiring that person's withdrawal and with no justification necessary. The home country is then expected to either recall its diplomat or terminate their formal obligations at the mission. In the U.S., the expulsion precedent extends back considerably further, to 1793, when France's first ambassador, Edmund Charles Genet, earned the ire of President George Washington for urging American privateers to join the French Revolution in contravention of Washington's neutrality policy. It would be a massive international scandal if Trump was to designate Rudd persona non grata under the Vienna Convention. Expulsions of lower-level diplomatic workers from nations with whom the U.S. has tensions occur more routinely, for example where they may be suspected of being undeclared intelligence operatives. But formally using Article 9 against the head of mission of a friendly country would be an exceptional action. The Australian National University international law professor Donald Rothwell says he doubts Trump would take that step. I just cannot perceive that the Vienna Convention would be relied upon in the case of an Australian ambassador, Rothwell argues. As things stand at the moment, it would cause a very significant rift in diplomatic relations, but he thinks the Australian government may be put in a position of saying we really need to replace this ambassador to ensure there is a good relationship and ensure the AUKUS nuclear submarine sale succeeds. Rothwell says any official persona non grata designation would be disastrous for the submarine pact. If the Vienna Convention trigger was pulled and the Australian ambassador was declared persona non grata in the midst of AUKUS treaty, still winding its way through the parliamentary processes in this country, it's doubtful whether AUKUS would survive. The convention isn't the only option for Trump if he decided he wanted a different Australian ambassador. Instead of invoking the official expulsion procedure, with all that it would mean for the two countries' ties, he could make it known across the administration and on Capitol Hill that his government's agencies were not to deal with Rudd. Even less formally than that, if he just restated his disgust with Rudd's perceived approach to him as he's already done once. Ahead of the election, his supporters may use that as a cue to make access more difficult, making Rudd's position extremely difficult. Trump has previously compelled one other Five Eyes allies ambassador to quit over personal complaints, albeit delivered as contemporary assessments at the time, and not historical reflections as Rudd's were. In late 2019, during the first Trump administration, Britain's ambassador Kim Darroch was forced to quit when cables he wrote back to London were released. The cables featured honest judgments of Trump as insecure and incompetent and branded his government as diplomatically clumsy, inept, and dysfunctional, predicting that it would crash and burn. I do not know the ambassador, but he is not liked or well thought of within the U.S. We will no longer interact with him, Trump wrote on the social media site X, formerly Twitter, in July 2019. Darroch quit a month later, stating it had become impossible for him to carry out his duties. The then British Prime Minister, Theresa May, awarded him a life peerage to the House of Lords on his return. Thanks for watching till the end. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more updates.